He said, for the past few weeks, I seem out of patience with the flow of life. When looking at this, I realize that it is seen, but the attention seems forced, where things in the world seem to magnetically pull all the importance with the daily routine. Months ago, the routine was harmonious with the same tasks such as taking care of the house, children, and work. Still, my question is how to see the bad mood, reverse, and maintain the good mood. I thought this question was really good to kickstart our conversation today because we can sort of pick it apart to not only quote unquote reverse the bad mood, but also to get to the heart of the resistance to the bad mood, to the lack of harmony, as so the mind would call it. So let's start here. So he said previously the same things that he is experiencing now, previously they were moving harmoniously, and now they're moving unharmoniously. Perhaps some inconveniences, some problems, some contractions, some limitations, problems. And this obviously, like the state of your circumstances is very attached to your state of being, your state of feeling, thinking. So when the state circumstances are a little rocky, a little fluctuating, turbulent, then the state of mind also is very glued to that, because the mind is judging your circumstances to see, okay, can I feel happy or no? So the conditioning, which is just, like our adopted belief system, it's judging circumstances through those filters to see, okay, is it okay to be happy or is it not? Do I measure up to these standards for happiness or no? And these standards are different for everybody, every one of us, because where we live differently, we are brought up in different cultures, so on and so forth. So let's start here. Ask yourself if it is worth holding on to any mood. Is it worth holding on to any emotion? Can you cling to any feeling, any state of mind, any state of circumstance? Because when we say, I want to be rid of these feelings and I want to just feel good, I want to feel peaceful all the time. I want to cling to that peaceful state of mind. So here, notice that peace and sense of well-being is associated with just the mental state. Thoughts are positive, feeling state is good, then that's it. But notice how the feeling state, the state of mind, it's constantly changing. And see through your own experimentation if it can be clinged onto. If the best of the best feeling can be clinged onto, or the worst of the worst feeling can be clinged onto. All feelings, all thoughts, even the subtlest states of being, moods, whatever they are, some maybe don't even have names, but the fact is they are perceived. If they are perceived, we can call them experience. And again, we go back to the same teaching. We must continue to notice the transiency of experience, the impermanence of experience, the dissatisfactoriness of experience. And most importantly, that there is no self in the limited experience. If it is perceived, you can't cling on to it. There's no use. And it is not you. Live by this rule. That is the spiritual practice. Anything that is perceived, any emotion, any mood, any state, don't define yourself with it, as it, and don't try to hold on to it, recreate it. Noticing this gives you a sense of freedom because, right, noticing this already places you in the seat of that which is beyond experience, that which is looking at the limited, that which is the witness of the limited, yet never itself becomes witnessed. So this is something we have to experiment with ourselves. See that even the subtlest of feelings, moods, they cannot be clinged onto. And it's difficult because we get into spirituality and these sorts of practices because we're greatly suffering and we want to feel good all the time and we want to have a harmonious life. And largely, as we become established in the knowing, as the knowing, the activity of the body and mind does follow a greater harmonious order. However, it is in the nature of experience to fluctuate between the good and bad, to fluctuate between the positive, negative, up and down, the appearance of harmony and the lack of harmony. So that must be allowed to be. It must be looked at as it is, not myself and temporary. See also that which craves for harmonious experiences is the idea that we have of ourselves. Clothed in personal identity, as a person, I want my circumstances to be good all the time. But see, does the knowing of experience have any preference to the if the does it even have any concept of if the experience known is positive or negative? Does the concept of positive, negative, good, bad even arise in just pure knowing, pure perceiving of experience? So this is the spiritual practice to continue to that is what we can say self-abidance entails in a way. As you no longer cling to experience and continue to define yourself as that which is arising, that is self-abidance. That is the spiritual practice. And that is the cleansing of the mind. Matter of fact, the experience as it is unfolding and the polarities within experience that are manifesting, right? The good and the bad and the positive and the negative. This is the impressions of the mind, what some call karma, what we can just call memory, impressions, beliefs, all of this unraveling, right? So previously, with great belief in personal identity, moving in the world as just a mere body, we are just collecting more and more, entangling ourselves more and more into this distortion. But as we the spiritual practice is the unraveling of all of this. So it is not that we encounter self-inquiry and now a harmonious experiences forever, but actually it might even, it gets ugly. It gets a little like all these contractions and limitations and this and that. Just allow it to be. Uh, Again and again, we must see that the knowing of them is free of preference towards them. And sure, seeing that in this moment may not necessarily free you of the resistance towards it. It may not free up the negativity or whatever, but that's the point. Continue to let that be. Don't react to it anymore. Don't prematurely just fight against what is arising. And then, right, don't not defining. I am nowhere to be found in that which is appearing. Not limiting myself to that. Even when we actually contemplate the thought of I am nowhere to be found in this experience, then for whom is the resistance? For whom is the suffering? That itself becomes irrelevant. And even maybe for a moment of that thinking, of thinking that thought, you sort of encounter the possibility of transcending that stuff. So it's just, so see that, your experience will continue to be like that. Sometimes it will be harmonious, sometimes it will not be harmonious. This too shall pass. The harmony will pass. The where you're calling disharmony, which is actually just harmony prior to your label of harmony, prior to your belief about harmony, what is harmony, you know? The imperfections are perfect. The appearance of imperfection is perfect. It is only perceived as imperfect if there's judgment, if there is personal identity for whom it can be good or bad based on its conditioning. But to the knowing, to just perceiving, pure perceiving prior to belief, the form of some sort of imperfection or limitation is itself perfection. So try to contemplate that a little bit. And this also gives us a sense of appreciation for the imperfections. And it resolves the resistance towards them. I always remember this one simple teaching. It was like, you know, you 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 will come to the realization that you are just watching. You're not doing anything. So this attitude frees us from that entanglement. Obviously, in the world, we continue to do what we need to do it to the best of our ability. But when we continue to abide in the understanding that first, like again and again, verifying and experiencing that just like this, the sound of my voice right now is arising, and the moment it arises, it also subsides, never to be found again until again it arises and never. Just like see all experience as this temporary voice, this sound arising, subsiding. See that everything in experience is just this way. Everything. Even the body is changing in just this same way. So this puts you beyond the craving for just harmonious circumstances. Because somewhere there's also a belief that if the nature of my experience was different, If it was this rather than that, if it was this experience, not this one, then I could be happy. Believing this itself is one of the greatest illusions. Perhaps right now the cause of your distress is lack of money. Believing that the money will free you of this restlessness, this suffering, is an illusion. It may in your personal situation be of great help, and if it comes, you will, right, if you're attentive to experience, you will notice that the even the abundance of money, if experience is still believed in as myself and as the ultimate truth, if there is any clinging, if there's any trying to hold on to or gain pleasure, happiness from experience, then you'll notice again that the nature of your experience will again be judged as imperfect. Now I have an abundance of money, but now there's something else. That's the cause of my distress. Perhaps now it's my partner, or perhaps now it's this other, case that has arisen, or some other problem in my health. Continuing to believe that my experience needs to change and that will be better and that will be good and that will be finally, something that then I believe then I can be happy. That is the uh the hypnosis. And it's so hard to believe because when we experience some sort of limitation, especially whatever we're going through right now, then it's so hard to believe that no, that this experience isn't the cause of my distress. Obviously, personally, yeah, in that moment, the experience is what the mind is using as a cause of distress. And I'm sure it's not a pleasant experience, but the the deeper look into it is that it is exposing within you the belief that happiness is to be found in experiences. And in doing so, we define ourselves as something that is also experience. Body, mind, even the subtlest moods and emotions and whatnot. And so we sometimes also don't listen to that teaching, right? We continue to crave experience and trying to change the experience itself. So just we have to learn through attentiveness and experience. So here, you don't just accumulate memories, learn from what is arising. See that, okay, when I didn't have money and I really thought that money would be the solution for my unhappiness, the moment you get money, it's almost like you just, again, first of all, like when you don't have money and something else is perfect in your life, you take that for granted, right? The mind doesn't even consider it. You may live in like a beautiful place, or you may have a perfect relationship or perfect family. You don't even notice it. You just take it for granted. That's just, oh, that's fine. You may occasionally notice that, oh yeah, that's perfect, but like it's almost just taken for granted. The attention is just here on what's making me unhappy. Now the money becomes great and it's almost again just taken for granted, whereas something else has become the cause of my distress. So it's not that the forms like the money or the relationship or this or that are limited. It's that there is an impression of lack in the mind. The mind does not know its own source. The mind is operating based on a false idea that I am the body. That is the only cause of distress, which appears in many of these other situations as lack of money, or this person left you, or this happens. These are just images, appearances. And they all manifest in very unique ways. It's what makes life the as we know it what it is, like the story, like the movie. It's what makes it interesting, worth living and experiencing. But that impression is to be looked at. Just no longer, even here and now, mentally, if you want, just stop believing that it is this causing the distress. Instead, let the distress be there and observe the distress. See also the temporariness of that distress. This doesn't just offer long term benefits, it's actually immediate because in observing, the resistance and the suffering that that resistance causes diminishes. And it's very powerful. So don't seek harmony in experience because even that harmony is just based on the idea of what you think, like, oh, things are going to go well. That's harmony. Things are going to go according to my plan. And whose plan? It's the mind's plan. See even the greatest limitations in your experience as harmony because ultimately it is, right, bringing forth that which can be transcended. It is pulling out of you all these reactions and beliefs and ideas which can be looked at and let go of. That's a powerful opportunity. That's what we call the unraveling of the personal self, the mind. In observing, the impression of lack dissolves little by little. The tendency to define yourself as an object of experience, of awareness, starts to dissolve. And again, there's no obstacle to the practice of observing because it is not even a practice. Any obstacle that you can claim, oh, it's holding me back from observing, is observed. So how could it be veiling or holding you back from the observing of it? Again, that's just the power of mind in that way to m- make this a natural, spontaneous observation, knowing, appear to be veiled or dormant, we can say, but it is always here. Your entire experience relies, it depends on the knowing of it. So it is that element of experience that we must come to now um, care for, look after it, tend to it, nurture it. And it undoes this whole confusion. It unravels this whole confusion. Even conversations like these are more complicated than the actual practice of what we are speaking, you know? So when you say, my question is how to see the bad mood and reverse and maintain the good mood, don't try to maintain the good mood. See instead its transiency. See instead, no matter how good it is transient, it is temporary, it is dissatisfactory because it is transient, and it is not myself. I am nowhere to be found in that. I am no longer defining myself as that or that as a part of me. This we must see again and again and again. And then we are living in harmony, not circumstantial harmony, not thought and emotion harmony, Those are all just off of ideas of what we believe harmony to be, which is always positive. No, we are living in harmony in the principle which acknowledges and sees this, the knowing essence itself. So this was a very important question today because this is a subtle aspect of the teaching, you know, but it is so practical and it could be like it's such a good practical exercise that can be practiced in all of the various experiences and limitations that we are all going through. Okay, so the next question, and I feel like I will have a similar answer to the next question that's coming up too, which is by and she said, for today's call, I was wondering if you could talk about health issues, just anything that would be beneficial, or I mean, anything that would be helpful or that helped you. Having a hard time with accepting of it right now and wishing I felt better. Also, what are your thoughts on practicing a feeling so we can experience that more? So I'm glad that we had the conversation, like we started the conversation with the first one, because see how the next question is also coming from the same trap. You see? What helped me with my health issues was the same attitude. Until then, how can you not resist? You know, how can you not wish it was different? So, here for you now is a very powerful opportunity, Doris, to implement the principle discussed in the first question. We always ask certain triggering questions like, you know, like, am I okay with this health issue never being healed? And see the response that arises in the form of thought and emotion. See how we take it to be what I am. We also resist it or cling on to it. Clinging and resisting is the same energy. Resisting bad, like negative emotion, is just the clinging of the good, you know, in the same way. So here we also, it's just, I want to feel good all the time. I want this, I want my experience to be perfect because then I can be happy. And it is my body feeling this way that it doesn't allow me to be happy, which very well may be the case personally. Yes. Of course, when there's a great pain, it seems quite impossible to be at peace. So, can you see even that unwillingness to accept? Can you see that even that resistance to the pain as the observable object of your seeing? It's funny because, again, we get into the spiritual teaching to rearrange our circumstances in a more beneficial or harmonious way. But here, our talks don't help you really do that. They point you even, it's almost like you're skipping that. And I mean, maybe we all went through a good bit of trying to rearrange our circumstances because we thought that was happiness. That was lasting peace. That was fulfillment. But now it's almost like it's a more direct path to what the experience, the limitations themselves are trying to teach us, to wake us up to. So with this teaching, the health issue may not be healed or the money situation may not be better. But again, as we said in the first answer, seeing through the eyes of judgment, through the eyes of the personal identity, there will be good, bad, there will be wanting this, not wanting that. And that will always remain on a certain level. But we cannot succumb to that level. We cannot step down into those lenses of perception. We cannot step down into that idea or belief. We cannot identify those judgments as myself. Those arise also as objects of our seeing. These judgments are equally observable. These resistances are equally mind. You know? Again, notice their transiency, their temporariness. Notice that, again, by the fact of being the temporary form observed, it is not you. You are nowhere to be found in that experience of resistance or even that experience of pleasure. So, although this teaching may or may not heal the body, it will certainly heal us of personal identity. It will cleanse the mind of that wrong impression of lack, that incorrect belief of being a part of experience. See that when we define ourselves as person, we are identifying as experience. The body is an experience in awareness. The mind, the resistances, the judgments are an experience in awareness. Awareness is the only thing which is not arising as a shape or a form, as a size or a here or a there. It is the only thing free of those qualities. And it has nothing personal about it. It is not relating to the objects. As a person, we always relate to what we see, what we know, are what we are looking at. As an object, I can relate to another object and I can say this is good or bad. But in see that the pure seeing of what is arising, it is different in a way that it is not, you're not aware of it as a something. You're not relating to it as a someone who has something to gain or lose. Right? The example that we always use is the space of this room has nothing to gain or lose from what is placed inside of it. It could be a pile of gold, it could be a pile of garbage. It has nothing to gain or lose. So again, one of the most powerful opportunities is to see our limitations as great reminders of this, as great awakeners of this. You may be looking at someone with perfect health and envying them and wishing that was you. But perhaps if you had perfect health, or again, perfect money situation, or this or that, you would still just be under that same spell, under that same personal identity, that same belief in chasing experience for happiness, defining yourself as a part of experience. So we must see the perfection in our imperfections, the perfection in our limitations. Trust me, all of this is going to go anyway. See that the healthiest of the healthiest people also went. The most wealthiest also went. Don't even remember their names anymore. No one cares about their success anymore. Maybe for 100 years they're remembered if they really did something significant. Still, they are going to be forgotten. The story is in time. Through this practice that we're talking about today, we're discovering the timeless. And so this, if you continue to limit your practice to just a search for better this or better that, then know that that will be a limitation. And you will continue to feel like, perhaps why do I even, am I failing to grasp this? Is because we're not taking that leap of faith and trust in the teaching, telling you that no, this is not the case. You are under the wrong impression that this is your happiness, that the solution to this personal problem is your happiness. Our unwillingness to explore that is us choosing to stay within the bubble of our current belief. And we contract ourselves into that. Be willing to lose everything. Be willing to gain anything. Know I have nothing to gain or lose from experience. That attitude is then what can hold us, you see the hypnosis wears off. It's the antidote to the hypnosis. I have nothing to gain or lose from the realm of experience. It's the perfect antidote. Knowing this, do what you need to do. Live according to your theme. For someone, it'll be family life. For someone, it would be, some sort of event, like a venture or whatever it may be. That's already something that whatever your current theme is, it's already manifesting. Every day you wake up with some other idea or knowing of what to do and what not to do. See that none of it is your doing. Keep in mind this teaching forever, that you will come to the realization that you are just the watching, nothing else. See, you don't have to accept it, but try to see if it is true. And this hypnosis is very strong. That's again what makes it so interesting. And even this whole self-discovery process so fun and exciting and difficult. But that is the antidote. Accept what comes, let go of what goes. That's why acceptance is such a crucial step to inquiry as well. Not a step, but like a side by side. And see, when you ask, also, what are your thoughts on practicing a feeling so we can experience that more? Again, it's just we're trying to cling to feelings. It cannot happen. For someone who has no willingness to accept this or explore it, then we might say, okay, practice the feeling, practice feeling good. Why? Because, right now, if there's a willingness to practice that, then sure, it will help you feel better. But your better feelings will always be vulnerable to the fact that they are transient and they will go. And the more we cling to the positive experiences and feelings, the more we will be afraid of and resist the negative when they naturally arise. Especially because the belief, the impression of lack is imprinted in the mind. So this duality will very much prevail in a very exaggerated manner, especially in the case of wanting to cling to feelings. So this isn't first grade spirituality. This is a very direct pointing, what we covered today. So that's why, uh, if this isn't understood, then we let's take a step down. Okay, practice feeling good and practice positive thinking. But what is that going to do? It is only reinforcing the identity of being a so and so, needing to cling to positive thoughts so that the feelings stay good and the experience stays good. But it will fail sooner or later because it, that failing is there to wake you up, is there to hint to you the next step to be taken, the next limitation to be transcended. But if we continue to just hide in that sort of cocoon of our belief, our unwillingness, then again, the mechanism is so beautiful because then the suffering becomes a little more intense. The old ways don't work anymore. Positive thinking is almost impossible. And then it just becomes more and more intense. And then we are like pushed or dragged into the greater understanding. It's much more uh, free and open and harmonious to go willingly into the understanding, letting the understanding unfold. But it's funny, and this may frustrate a few, that even that is not in our control because again, we are not the doer of this. We are not the doer of if I contract or I let go or I am willing. The willingness and the unwillingness itself is the process of the universe. It is the unfoldment of the universal harmony, the manifestation of which we are just the seeing. And that's why even the unwillingness, even the contraction, even the resistance, even the suffering can just be seen and let be. This too shall pass. If this understanding is starting to develop, that's a great sign because that is a great gift, a great blessing. This talk is very important for the that side of the practice because obviously, going within and inquiring and directly abiding in the awareness of awareness is the direct element that we talk about. However, living in the day-to-day life, this is the attitude to be adopted, to be practiced. And they both sort of feed into each other. They both uh, join as the direct path. And it's very quickly you really start to experience the freedom that it brings. Freedom not as a sort of feeling better or experience, but which also might be the case, obviously, but almost like as we begin to no longer define ourselves as that which is experienced. I think that is a sort of an inner peace, inner freedom. And the conviction and the teaching, the faith and the teaching becomes stronger, and the willingness to practice matures. Wisdom cultivates.